Hi, it's Louise at Spiral Bright Insight. I'm a galactic and intuitive astrologer, and I want to do an energy check-in just to have a chat about some of the astrology that we are working with. But before I go any further, happy April, happy new month. There is going to be a shift in the energy this month. And if you are on my mailing list, hopefully you received my newsletter, which went out yesterday with insights about some of the key astrological transits that we can look forward to in the coming month. So obviously, we've had a very intense couple of weeks. Eclipse season this year was beyond anything that I have ever experienced, certainly at a personal level. And then on Sunday, we had Neptune move into Aries. And I will talk a little bit about that because that is a really, really big deal. Neptune is one of the outer planets. It moves very slowly. It has a 165-year transit or round the entire wheel, and as it's just moved into Aries, this is very much about a new beginning, a reset, a rebirth. But I will come on to that shortly. But first of all, let's just talk about kind of what is happening today in the chart. So the 1st of April, and we have the moon is in Taurus, getting very close to a conjunction with Uranus, which obviously happens once a month. But today, this is strengthened because Uranus, is in a sextile to Saturn. So the moon is going to come along, add a little bit of extra weight to Uranus and really activate that sextile to Saturn. And then we have Venus, which is still in retrograde. So she is still in retrograde motion until I think it's the 13th of this month. So she's got another sort of fortnight to work with her inner journey, her retrograde journey, now in Pisces. So she is exploring herself and what she's worth and her values and what matters from a much more spiritual, unified perspective, having gone through the early degrees of Aries, where she was really connecting to herself at a very new and quite enlightening level. Certainly that was how she was showing up in my personal experience. That Venus in retrograde is at 27 degrees of Pisces, conjunct the North Node at 27 degrees of Pisces. So she is really sort of working out what matters, what her value is, what she wants to attract, what she wants to bring in, how love for herself is going to look. And as she sort of explores her self-love and her commitment to herself, she understands that that is going to have a huge ripple effect on everything around her, particularly her personal relationships, but also at a wider level, because in Pisces, she's really connected to all that is something much higher and much sort of wider than herself. Pisces really brings us into this collective state of nothingness. Pisces is very much like the void. It's that stage where we just expand, we dissolve, we stretch into a sense of being at one with everything, having compassion for everything, feeling that we are connected to everything. So Venus is really exploring what it feels like to be in that state of interconnectedness, to have that trust and that faith in a higher power, to step into something, to surrender to something that is just so much bigger than herself. And she's exploring what that looks like, and she's exploring it from a very deep inner level because she is in retrograde motion. So she's kind of working out all of that. Mercury is also in retrograde still. He's going to station direct on next Monday on the 7th of April. So he's still got another week of retrograde. And, really locking in that understanding that Venus is sort of exploring. So making sure that Venus is connecting with perhaps the more physical side, because Venus is our senses and how we sort of experience the world through our senses and how we attract in opportunities and energies and frequencies and people that we align with. So she is kind of representing the body, but in a very spiritual sense through Pisces at this time. Mercury is representing the mind. So Mercury needs to make sure that, you know, he really understands what is going on and is almost making notes. You know, I had this come through in another video recently. It's like the scribe, making sure that all of this journey is very well documented, because what is happening at this time is significant and it is going to be important that we have a record of what is happening. So obviously, you know, I'm talking at a more energetic level, although I'm sure there are people writing down and noting what is going on in the wider world at this time. But this is about your inner scribe, your inner knowing, your inner understanding. And, you know, so we've got the body through Venus, we've got the mind through Mercury, and then of course we've got the soul aspect as well with the North Node. The North Node is really about our soul's growth, our soul's evolution, where we are heading. But in Pisces, this also connects us to the soul, to spirit, to the ethereal, to something beyond that we cannot see, that we cannot physically touch, but that we just know is there. So this is very much about having faith at this time. So there's a huge shift, a reset, an exploration, you know, a rewiring, a reviewing of ourselves, body, mind and soul at this time. And while that's going on, we have a square to the Galactic Centre. So the Galactic Centre at 27 degrees of Sagittarius is in a square. And this is really forcing deep change, shifts that are non-negotiable, that cannot be ignored, they cannot be avoided. You know, they can't be sort of, you can't turn your back or turn away from this, because the square is going to force you to really face up to something that is essentially the cosmic truth of who you are, who we all are. The Galactic Centre really connects us to and forces us to connect to something that is multidimensional, that takes us beyond the 3D, mundane, human, physical experience. We have to now, whatever we do, and because the North Node is here as well, this is part of our soul's growth, this is part of the path ahead, we have to build in and acknowledge our cosmic selves now going forward. You know, that is non-negotiable. This is the change that is happening now. And as we move forward, we are bringing a big part of our cosmic self into our reality. And that's going to be how it is, you know, for all of us, whether we are aware of that or not. So the Galactic Centre is essentially sort of a source. It's the centre of our galaxy. It is the source of light codes, very high frequency particles, literally being, you know, projected and propelled towards us. So again, we have no option but to receive them and start to work with them, try to integrate them. This is much higher frequency. So this is about a shift in consciousness, an increase or a rising of consciousness. And the Galactic Centre, as well as sort of sending stuff out, because it is like a black hole, it is also pulling stuff towards it, magnetizing stuff towards it, and that includes us. So the Galactic Centre is like this beautiful source of higher divine wisdom. It's also a cosmic homing signal. So it is calling us back to the truth of who we are. And as Venus is working with this, you know, cosmic point, this powerful cosmic point in a square, she is having to really review and explore and redefine who she is, what matters in the context of a higher sort of vision, a higher understanding of who she is and where she's come from, and also where she goes next. Mercury's coming along. Mercury will square the Galactic Centre later on this week, but you know, the orb is still tight enough for it to be very influential. So Mercury is going to really have this greater understanding, this greater viewpoint. There's new stories, there's new beliefs coming in that again really make sure that the cosmic self is being embodied and embedded and brought through to play a part in this next stage. And the North Node is making sure that we are aligned exactly where we need to be, what we need to do, and how we need to really proceed going forward. And of course, North Node in Pisces is very much about service to the higher self, to source, to something greater than us, with the South Node in Virgo being very much about practical service and service through being embodied. So this is huge. And you know, if you're not feeling like, obviously Neptune has moved into Aries, we have got the sun in Aries as well at the moment. So, you know, there should be like a really big burst of energy and, you know, the spring is coming and we're like, really, you know, let's go, 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 go. But my feeling energetically is that we're still being held back because there's so much going on in Pisces. And of course, we've still got Saturn in Pisces as well. So there is still so much that is unclear. There is still a lot of dissolving. There is still a lot of unraveling, surrendering, sort of just, you know, we are in a cloud, we're in a sea, we're still in the ocean. We still don't, especially with the personal planets, Venus and Mercury in Pisces, we still don't have a clear picture. So until these planets both finish up their retrograde, move forward back through the end degrees of Pisces, and then when they shift into Aries, I think that is when the big energetic shift is going to happen. So if you were kind of expecting, you know, with Neptune in Aries to be a massive, like, you know, we're in a new world and it's all amazing, and it's like, no, I don't think we're quite there yet, and that's okay because there is still work to be done. And of course, Neptune in Aries is only there for about 7 or 8 months. Neptune is going to be in Aries until the 22nd of October. So this is kind of a real dabbling phase. You know, this is just trying it on for size. What does it feel like? What does it look like? And then it won't be until January 2026 that Neptune steps fully into Aries, and then we'll spend the next 14 or 15 years in that sign. So again, you know, as with Pluto, when Pluto is sort of moving in and out of Aquarius, you know, the real shift is going to be in January, but we still have, you know, these months ahead to really explore what Neptune in Aries feels like. What does it look like? How is it going to show up? How is it going to manifest? So let's go back quickly to the sextile between the Moon, Uranus and Saturn, because the message coming through with that is obviously with the strong Taurus energy, Uranus, Moon together in Taurus, there is definitely a need to be embodied, to really feel into what is going on, to experience the changes and the shifts at a very physical level. And this is about engaging your senses. So, you know, not trying to escape, being fully grounded, coming in and just understanding what these new energies feel like at a very physical level, because this is really important, because this is part of the human journey, the human ascension, you know, Earth's ascension. We need to be fully embodied and fully physical and fully present in order for this to work, you know, to its optimum, exactly as it's meant to work. So we need to feel the shifts. And obviously with the sextile to Saturn, you know, Saturn is very much, especially in Pisces, is about mastery. There are lessons, and we've had lots of lessons to learn. We will still have lessons to learn and to work through. But with Saturn, you know, ruler Capricorn, this is about mastery. This is about putting in the work, the effort, being determined, being committed, and really building your way up. And I often see Saturn as like, you know, the promotion where you get to, you know, you're getting to the top of your game if you're working with Saturn in a really sort of empowered and sovereign way. So Saturn in Pisces is really taking us to the top of our spiritual game, spiritual mastery, to really get the hang of and to work with this beautiful unity consciousness, compassion for all, you know, where there are no boundaries, where there are no structures, where there are no limitations, and we can step fully into our soul expression through a physical body. And with this sextile with Taurus, it's like, and Uranus and Taurus, it's like we've got this awakening. This awakening is happening at a very physical level because it is in Taurus. It's connected to the earth. It's connected to, you know, our physical structure. It's connected to what we have built, what we have created. So this awakening is very much happening, but it is at a physical level. And Saturn in sextile is really, I don't know, just making sure that we are kind of accessing the opportunity that the sextile brings to make the most of this promotion. You know, are you actually going to make it work? Are you ready to step up? Are you ready to step into this new role, to take on these new responsibilities? Because, you know, Saturn is about responsibility, and the awakening process operating at a high level of consciousness does come with a new level of responsibility, because you have to literally up level, you have to up your game. Things are not going to be the same as they were before. You can't escape, you can't stick your head in the sand, you have to face things head on. You know, you have to work with these high frequencies, and that in itself is a whole sort of learning process. So this is really beautiful, and this sextile is going to be ongoing because Saturn will move, you know, pretty much in line with Uranus, although Uranus is going to be slightly slower, but they will be in sextile for, you know, the coming months. So this is not just for today, but because the moon is here, it's almost like, right, you know, you have to really have a very deep commitment to this. And it is going to be an emotional commitment as well. It's acknowledging that, you know, we are working with our physical bodies, but also our emotional bodies, and we are working with our spiritual bodies through Saturn. And all of this is just a huge part of our learning curve and our journey forward, and how we progress and evolve and rise up and essentially step into that new level where we are starting to really master the more spiritual side of ourselves and what is possible. So, you know, I found it really interesting. Obviously, it's absolutely devastating what is happening in the world in terms of the earthquakes, you know, and the absolute destruction and devastation and chaos and shock and horror that they have caused. But, you know, Earth is having this huge sort of shake up herself. And, you know, again, you know, with the eclipses do affect the Earth and what's happening in the Earth, but it really feels like with the earthquakes, Mother Earth herself is releasing a lot of stuck energy, and that is really the process of Uranus in Taurus as well, is to release that stuck energy that is held within the physical. And you know, I've been doing a lot of work. I do a lot of yoga. And I've been working with the most amazing yoga teacher, and we've been doing dynamic meditation for the last probably 18 months. And rather than sitting, you know, with legs crossed, you know, Gyan Mudra, you know, really focusing, you know, I don't know, into the head, well, you know what I mean? The dynamic meditation is very much about moving the body and allowing the body to shake, because that is how the body releases. And if you watch animals in nature, particularly my dog does it all the time, they are constantly shaking, and it's like, that's the way they reset. So if they're getting excited or if they get scared or anything happens, they just know it's natural to them to shake, and they shake off everything that they need to shake off, and then it's reset, and they, you know, and they're on to the next thing. And this is what the dynamic meditation that I've been doing is about. We literally allow the body to shake. And through that process, and it is actually spontaneous shaking, once your body gets used to what it's doing, it will literally, and mine just goes into this like almost, yeah, I'm ready to release. And you know, the shaking can be at any part of the body. It's actually quite bizarre, but it's also very it's very healing, and it really helps you to let go. So, you know, Mother Earth is doing it, you know, animals do it, and I would encourage you, particularly, you know, over this week, you know, if you can sort of shake things off, you know, and it literally is, you know, just taking a few minutes to almost reset your body at a physical level. I think, well, for me, it's certainly been really, really beneficial. So, yeah, something to consider. Now, I think I'm going to do a separate video actually about Neptune in Aries, because this one is gone on slightly longer than I was expecting it to. The other thing I wanted to say, as well as sort of in terms of energy check-in, as well as still feeling, you know, that, you know, well, from a personal point of view, I know I'm still exploring myself. I'm still exploring, you know, what the new version of me looks like. And I know that process is going to go on certainly for as long as retrograde, Venus is retrograde in Pisces. And then, you know, I reckon it's going to take until she moves back into Aries before we really can step into sort of the new version of who we each are at a very individual level. But, you know, part of that process and part of Venus exploring the subconscious, which is also Pisces. Pisces relates to what is hidden. You know, this can be entrapment, this can be imprisonment, this can be anything that is locked away, that is secret, that is sort of held in the subconscious. Venus is also going to be exploring that. And again, this is what my own personal experience. I have had a lot of shadow coming up. I've talked about shadow a lot. I feel that shadow is a huge part of the light worker's journey. And I feel that shadow actually is not what we've been led to believe it is. It is not something to be scared of. It is not something to be fearful of. It is actually the most empowering aspect of us if we can start to recognize it and bring it in. But, you know, it does come with the need to be brave and to be courageous, because when the shadow is coming up to be seen and to be recognized and integrated, it can trigger fears. And I've had a lot of nightmares. I've had a lot of completely irrational fears coming up, which, you know, the logical Louise and the rational Louise can look at it and think, you know, what the hell are you worrying about that for? Why are you so scared of that? That is just a crazy, you know, that's not real. But the mind can very easily convince us that what we are thinking and what is coming up is real, and that actually it's right to be scared and it's right to be fearful, and, you know, we should protect ourselves, because that is how we have been programmed to react to fears. But again, you know, I talked about this recently. If things are coming up and they are creating fear, you know, within you, and again, this is more if it is a rational fear, or, you know, from a logical perspective, you can see that it's a bit crazy. Sit with it, allow it to come in, you know, rather than freaking out or trying to escape or trying to bury it, and just allow it to come in and just say, okay, this is interesting. You know, this is an interesting perspective. Why am I so scared about this? Why am I so fearful? You know, what is the truth? What is real about this? And what am I making up? And, you know, what am I not getting about this fear? You know, what are you trying to tell me? What am I missing? Ask all these questions, because you might find, you know, if you settle yourself down and allow sort of, you know, yourself time to have this conversation with the self, you might actually find that you get a lot of insight and some really interesting sort of answers and ideas step forward. So, you know, I'm not going to pretend it's fun and it's horrible. You know, nightmares are hideous, but it is the mind and the soul and the body processing stuff that is being unlocked, that is coming up. So, you know, if you see it from a bigger picture, it is actually very empowering. It is very healing. You know, it's an incredible time actually to be going through, and, you know, to be able to witness and to observe and to have an awareness that all this stuff is coming up to be, I'm going to say released, but actually it's not, it's coming up to be integrated, because the shadow is an aspect of the self, as is the light, and we need to have both, because the shadow cannot exist without the light. Light on its own is just pure white light. We need the shadow, you know, for that contrast. So it's about bringing both in together and seeing that there is gold in the shadow as well as the gold in the light, and that actually we need to work with both. And that for me is the path of a light worker and somebody who is here to really support the process of rising up, sort of, you know, coming into a new level of consciousness. So what is essentially coming up at this time, or what I've been guided to share, is that it's not coming up to harm us necessarily, but it is coming up to release us and free us from the past, to free us from anything that we have felt trapped by, or that we have kept locked in, that we have been so attached to, but that is holding us back. And of course, you know, with this North Node in Pisces, this is really about setting the self free from the physical boundaries, the physical restrictions and the physical limitations that perhaps, you know, we've done this, you know, ad infinitum over so many lifetimes. So again, there is no judgment, but it is about stepping into the next level. And although we don't know what that looks like, because there is a huge void, you know, it's hard to, nothing can be pinned down. There are no rules at this stage, but it is about surrendering to that and just allowing what comes up to be, but also not attaching to it and not getting too engrossed in it or obsessed with it. Just allow everything to flow through. Just let go, and release, and let's see where that takes us. So I hope you have enjoyed that little update. As always, please do share, you know, if there's anything coming up for you that, you know, is pertinent. And yeah, I'm yeah, I'll be back. I'm going to share another video about Neptune in Aries and some thoughts about what that is going to look like for us. But for now, I'll leave you there. Thank you so much for watching.